Have you ever had the feeling that you are losing a grip over reality? Maybe right now, like I am. Did you ever wish you could do a reset, like reboot like a computer, start something new, something fresh, have an alternative? You see, tonight I'm going to talk to you about strategy and the art of letting go. It is just one small idea. It's not a big consulting company. It's not these big planning teams talking about long-term planning and vision and money and budget. Just one small idea, art of letting go. Because the world, if you haven't noticed, has gone completely, officially mad. And it is hard to tell the difference between what is fake and what is real, between who is controlling us and who is manipulating us, who is talking about morals and who's just doing realpolitik. And it's not just that, right? It's also this accelerated pace of change. Everything is going on at the same time, buzzing in our heads. So it's also the intensity that's causing the blur. It's who we are afraid of. And who is afraid of who? Is it Malala, the Pakistani who thought every girl has a right to education? Is it the Oscar Wilde, the individualist, who were self-indulgent but lived in a Puritan society, so found herself in jail? Or was it Qasem Soleimani, Allah Yerachmo, who was this Iranian general, who was terrorizing the Middle East until President Trump decided to end it? Is it the bushfires in Australia, killing billions of animals, kangaroos, and burning koalas? Is it the Brexit in Europe? Or is it the ransomware in our own private computers? And when are we afraid of? What is this clock that makes us tick? The anxiety inside. Is it the stock market? Is it the national primaries? We have had 3 thus far this year. Or is it the certification? I mean, I have kids. They're going to live long after me, and they're not going to have any water or food, probably, like your kids. So what do we do about it? Nowadays, this is a quote from an Israeli general. I teach a general's course in the IDF and the Israeli Defense Forces, and he said a couple of weeks ago, that was his feeling, right? He said, nowadays, our campaigns are endless, they're infinite. The horizon is completely empty, and there is nothing on it. Now, this could be something that's very curious, like the explorers, but this could be something very, very bad. So if our campaigns are infinite, and the horizon is completely open, how do you know where to go? How do you know if that's the correct way to go? And if you don't know where you're going, like Alice said, how do you know you're not going to drift endlessly into something that has no end? So we're not doomed for 2 reasons. One, drifting is not so bad. Like Frank Gehry said, if you know where it's going, it's not worth doing, right? And 2, because there is a trick. The trick is that it's all in our head, right? We said we need to let go. We need to let go of old habits. We need to let go of old paradigms. We need to let go of our mindset. We need to reinvent ourselves. And it goes like that. First, you invent a new tool for mind navigation. One that is tailor-made for what? Remember, for open horizons and mad worlds. Our tool is called SOD, Systemic Operational Design. It combines system thinking, operational art, and design thinking into this one process. In this process, what we do is create these cognitive frames or mental models. They serve as these breadcrumbs, like the stories of children, or the maps that we create or draw ourselves. Second one is the power of the dark side. I'm sure you recognize it. And it's us willing to get our heads dirty and our minds dirty and deconstruct. What do we need to deconstruct? We need to construct what our bosses tell us We need to deconstruct what our bosses cannot tell us. We need to deconstruct what our bosses won't tell us. We need to cultivate. We need to cultivate the political. We need to cultivate the controversial. We need to cultivate the implicit. Otherwise, we are doomed to get lost. And what will we get lost in? Not open horizons, but what I call the unbearable dullness of discussion, or what other people call round tables. And third, we need to unveil the mask. Now, probably some of you read John Rawls' Veils of Ignorance. We have different veils of ignorance. Some masks we put on us, some masks people put on us. But it's these masks like the Matrix that blind us. They blind us from seeing the truth. They blind us because it's our fears, it's our stigmas, it's our pre-assumptions, it's our prejudices, or in other words, it's the prisons of our own mind. So the enemy, and again, I'm coming from the military, the enemy is not the enemy. We are our worst enemies. And this is why we need to disrupt ourselves before we can disrupt others. And we call it 6 degrees of freedom. So number 1, who dares wins, define dare. There is a saying in the military, if you want to fail your commander, do what he says. But Orson Welles said it, don't give them what they think they want, give them what they never thought they could think of. 2nd degree of freedom. First in wins, second may be better. I'll give you an example. Civil war in Syria begins with President Bashar Assad throwing these chemical barrels, do you remember, on the rebels. Tens of thousands of people are dying. So the UN says stop, but it doesn't care. The US says stop, but it doesn't care. President Obama tells him to stop. He draws a red line and said, if you don't stop, military intervention. What does Assad do? Nothing. He doesn't care. Then President Putin comes in. He has an idea. He tells Obama, I will take care of the chemical weapons for you. You don't have to put boots on the ground. Obama agrees. What happens? The worst enemy of Putin is inviting him to the best show in town, which is the Middle East, and Russia is still there to this day. So, by the way, there are no red lines in strategy, exactly for that reason. Rule number 3, degree of freedom number 3. Truth always wins? Maybe narrative wins. Because strategy is a good theory. Like Albert Einstein said, if you want to see something differently, you have to come up with a new theory. If all you have is old theories, there are no alternatives. But the problem is, or the paradox is, that you never know if your theory is correct. So make it a good one. Degree of freedom number 4. Safe wins. The boldest measures are the safest. I think that one speaks for himself, as long as you remember that being bold begins first and foremost with being bold just in your thinking. Degree of freedom number 5. May the best win, only in relation. And this is a quote from a British general who fought World War II against the Japanese, Bernard Ferguson. And that's how he described their success. And he said, it would be idle to deny that the sensation of campaigning in that topsy-turvy way includes an element of special excitement. But it is also exhilarating, and that's what's important, to know that you, and not the enemy, are setting the pace. You see, we are all victims of Western idealism, and it doesn't get us any closer to winning. All we have to be are the ones that are setting the pace. They do it in business all the time, right? We have different is better than better, and we have good enough is better than better. We have the buy before build, we have the borrow before build, but we also have the steal before build. I'll give you an example. Teva Pharmaceutical Industries is a big pharma company. All of us are using their products. They have a monopoly and patents of many, many drugs that we use in the world. They were very successful until a couple of years ago. Their stakeholders were happy. Many of us are invested in this company, but then something happened. A couple of factories in India decided they're going to start producing, manufacturing the same drugs under a different name, only in a tenth of a price. So what happened? Patients from all over the world are buying the drugs in India and shipping them back to their countries. Legal? No. Moral? Effective? Okay. Final one. Degrees of freedom, number 6. Simple is good, complex is better. And why am I saying that? Because remember, strategy, at the end of the day, is just a good story. And what makes a good story a good story? It is the anomalies, it is the mismatches, it is the anecdotes. It is the right problem statement that makes a story intriguing. It is this potential that you can uncover, but it only comes from the tensions in the world, not from everything that is harmonious. You see, if you have something intriguing, you know you're on the right path, you know that you have an alternative. So let's recap. Good design is first and foremost about letting go of what is holding you back. First in your thinking, then in your doing. You have to find a new tool of mind navigation. You have to unleash the power of the dark side, and you have to take degrees of freedom. You see, nobody is going to give you the degree of freedom. Degree of freedom is something that you have to take yourself. And this is how we do it in the military. We destroy in order to create. Thank you.